about humans at their worst, right off the bat, we know which hormone to round up: testosterone. So what's the deal with testosterone? Why are males of every species and every culture such a pain in the rear on this planet here? It's because testosterone makes you aggressive. Testosterone doesn't make you aggressive. Here's what it actually does. Take 5 male rhesus monkeys, put them in a group, let them form a dominance hierarchy. A defeats B 3 times, B never defeats A. This is the hierarchy. Now take C and inject C with testosterone. Give C like so much testosterone, like every amygdaloid neuron is growing antlers, and that guy just enormous. So now does C get involved in more fights? Absolutely. Is this the pattern that occurs now? Is C suddenly challenging A and B and rising in the heart? Absolutely not. C never does a thing with A and B. What happens instead is C becomes a total nightmare to D and E. Testosterone does not invent aggression. Testosterone exaggerates pre-existing social patterns of aggression. And it turns out it does something even more subtle than that. And this is people beginning to realize what testosterone really does is when your status is being challenged, testosterone makes you do whatever you need to do to maintain status. Now, if you're a baboon and somebody's challenging your status, the way you maintain it is you have a fight with them. It's synonymous. But if you're human, things get more complicated. And for example, you can have an economic game where people get status by making generous offers and give people testosterone, and they become more generous in the game. In other words, if you shot up a whole bunch of Buddhist monks with testosterone, they would run amok doing random acts of kindness all over the place. The trouble isn't that testosterone makes us aggressive. The trouble is that we reward aggression with status so readily. Meanwhile, if we're talking about sort of the good side of our behavior, the hormone that immediately comes to mind is oxytocin. Oxytocin is officially the grooviest hormone in the world. Oxytocin promotes mother-infant bonding, pair bonding, trust, expressivity, cooperation, generosity. Give fruit flies oxytocin, they become better listeners, all sorts of stuff like that. Oxytocin promotes pro-social behavior. Oxytocin does no such thing once you look more closely. One example of this was worked on a few years ago in the Netherlands, and volunteers there were given this classic problem in philosophy, the runaway trolley problem. A trolley is broken loose from its brakes, it's hurtling down the tracks, it's going to kill 5 people. Is it okay to push one person onto the track who will be killed but will slow down the trolley? Can you sacrifice one to save 5? Basic utilitarian stuff. Philosophers have been dealing with the runaway trolley problem since, I don't know, Aristotle took his first trolley. It turns out how you frame it matters. Is it okay to push a person versus is it okay to pull a lever that dumps the person? You get totally different answers from people. Okay, so they give these volunteers the runaway trolley problem. And the key thing in this study was they gave a name to the person you were pushing on the track. Either it was somebody with a classic good old boy Dutch name like Dirk or Peter or something, or it was one of 2 groups that consistently evoke negative connotations in Holland: people from Germany, oh that's right, World War II, or people with Muslim names. So now you got a choice. So are you going to push Dirk onto the tracks? What about Wolfgang? What about Mahmoud? And it turns out you give people oxytocin and they're far more likely to spare Dirk, and they fall over themselves to throw Otto and Wolfgang and Mahmoud under the tracks there. Oxytocin doesn't make us more pro-social. It makes us more pro-social to people who feel like an us. If it's a them, it makes us crappier and more xenophobic to them. So in both cases, we've got hormones affecting our brains, our sensory systems, but far more subtly than you might think. And the problem with testosterone is that we reward status to aggression so readily, not that testosterone causes it. And the thing about oxytocin is it doesn't make us more pro-social. It exaggerates this divide between us's and them's. Okay, so now push